what's the deal, man? I'm looking around, Steve, and I see BK with snakes around his neck. BK, out in Mexico and stuff, and nice ass restaurants and stuff, hanging out and kicking it. Like BK just, he's taking this week off. No biggie, man. Just, one of the biggest weeks of the year. And now he's throwing it in our faces. Like I don't want to have the snake around my neck because I'm good on that. I'm good on that. He probably paid a good 20, $40 to do that. I'm good on that. But I just don't like the big ass smile that he has on his face where he looks like he's just flaunting it. And I feel it's personal towards us. He's flaunting how good of a time he's having in Mexico City. I've never been to Mexico City. I'd like to go to Mexico City. I mean,
Did he send that to us, or did
no,
I just miss it? Or did he post that on social media?
Yeah, he posted that on social media. I got it on Facebook. I ain't gonna say I've completely followed his trip, but I've seen a lot of it on there. It's coming up, and it's coming up in a way where he's wanting to show it to us, like he's flaunting it to us. And I'll be honest with you, I don't appreciate it. And you know what? When I go to Disney World, I'm gonna do it to him. I'm gonna flaunt it because I know that is a place that he loves, and I know that is a place where he is gonna get himself good and turned on about. And I'm gonna
the Kileys love some Disney World.
It's one of the strangest things I've heard. Now, I will say in Kiley's defense, I have now talked to other people who are adults who feel the same way as Kiley. I don't feel good calling him that. Who feels the same way as BK? I know the Kileys love it, and I found some other families that said, "Oh man, we used to go when we didn't have kids." He said the kids really are slowing us down now. Like I've seen multiple adults that just say, "Oh yeah, rock and roll, we're going by ourselves," like the Kileys do. So there are other weirdos out there.
I'd really like to go to the Star Wars thing, personally, but
yeah, I'm good.
But no, I just looked at the picture. He looks like he's having the time of his life. He looks so happy right now, not having to worry about covering the Chiefs and the stressful game that I'm sure we'll get on Saturday. He's just out here carrying around pythons or whatever the hell that is. Good for BK. I'm happy for him.
I'll be honest with you, it's too happy for me. Like I don't I want him to be happy. And I see like he's giving us the big smiling in the photos, and the fangs are extra sharp in some of these pictures. Like there was one he was having dinner with some fellas. And, them fangs were coming out. Like he looked like somebody was gonna lose some blood tonight fooling with Brandon Kiley with that smile. But oh man, I want him to have a good time, but he looks like he's going over the threshold of good time that I would like for him to have. I wonder, I do wonder what he was thinking, Steve, because we have not talked to Brandon really since the injury. And one of the things we've learned doing this show together, we've done this now several years, is I don't think we knew that BK was the sky is falling fan. The flip on the dime, and oh god, it's over. Oh, it's over. He ended the season for the Chiefs multiple times last year. We didn't know it. I bet you when Pat went down and was limping off, Brandon may have just ended the season for the Chiefs. Brandon, and he'll switch on a dime. So I bet you he was as nervous as anybody, concerned and scared, and probably just quit the Chiefs. And I'm here to say this, Serda, and I would say this to BK if he was here. I know this thing sucks. It's terrible. It's like, shoot, man, they get to the playoffs, and now Pat has got to deal with this ankle. And the thought is, with this line, man, he's got to be able to run and move, and you're going to need him to do that more and more now. And now he may not have the ability to do that. I know he had the injury 2 years ago, but You feel a little bit a lot better about the offensive line situation 2 years ago than you do this year. But Steve, I think this might be a blessing in disguise. And I don't just say that in a space of, hey, let me be Mr. Optimism. No, I think this is potentially a blessing in disguise because sort of I don't know what the hell Andrew Reid's been doing the last several weeks. I don't know. It's as if he is in denial of what his football team is, and in particular his offense, and in particular his offensive line, and in particular his tackles. Like he's just called plays like he doesn't have issues across the offensive line. He's just said, you know what? Raiders 15 times in a row in the second half with the lead. Hell yeah, I'll drop back and throw it. It just said it last week, 21-0. The next 26 plays, 18 of them, 24 plays, 18 of them are going to be passes with Joe Tooney kicked out at left tackle. Who cares? I think now this injury, which clearly, Steve, it's not as bad as maybe we thought it was, and it's not as bad as Cincinnati. Now, Patrick has said it, and clearly, Steve, he ain't missed a day of practice, and they just completely took his ass on off the injury report, right? He's not even on it anymore, and he's practiced, didn't miss a practice. You'd think, like everybody thought, oh, just let him rest this week. Hell, he didn't even rest a practice day. So it's clearly not as bad as you thought it would be. But I do think, Serda, it's not 100%. And I think Andy understands at this point, I have got to be a part of protecting Patrick Mahomes. I can't, I've got to minimize the risk of him getting drilled and him re-injuring this thing. And one way is to not have him throw the ball 50 times a game. And especially not have him throw the ball 50 times a game when you have a lead and a double-digit lead. And to not just say, hey, man, Myles Garrett, man, hey, bro, we're going to drop back and just pass all game long. Like, and so I do think this may be a blessing in disguise because I think this is forcing Andy to adjust, forcing him to adjust how he calls the game to protect Patrick Mahomes. So I think this could make for a better thing.
If this doesn't, I don't know what will, because the offensive line certainly isn't forcing him to adjust his play calling.
I told you, yeah, he's been in denial.
The lack of explosive playmakers certainly isn't making him adjust his play calling. Like it has been so frustrating to watch them play offense, as if it's as if Andy Reid doesn't believe in his run designs anymore, even though we've seen that he can be one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL when he wants to scheme up some rushing plays. It doesn't always have to be about the pass, even though he's clearly always favored the passing game over the running game. But this is the game, and the next game on a short week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, like with a banged up superstar quarterback, like if they're not going to lean into the run, if they're not going to try to make things a little bit easier, like we saw a couple of games ago when for one drive they leaned into the no huddle quick passing game and it was one of the best offensive drives they've had in a while. Like this is the game that they have to do it. And I agree with you. Like I think we are going to get a good Andy here because I think Andy is aware of how bad he was last week and how his play calling and his hard-headedness led to Patrick Mahomes being injured. Like, yeah, he has acknowledged that. And so I would hope they're going to change things up this week because we see this across the NFL all the time where it's like, man, it just seems like the answer is pretty easy if you would just give it up and just actually try to make some adjustments. But sometimes these guys get frustrated because they want to run what they want to run until you get it right. And they think the way you hammer it into the players is like by running it over and over again, even if you keep failing at it. And sometimes that does work, but sometimes you just don't have the talent to do it. So you have to make adjustments based on the guys that you have and what they are capable of.
But Serda, we've talked about this for years with everything. everybody has blind spots, even great people, even people who are great in their industry. Whatever it is, we all have blind spots. And it is clear, right, sort of, you're not surprised that Andy Reid has just gotten pass happy. Of course not, right? Andy's done this forever. This has clearly been Andy's blind spot since he's been a play caller and he's been a head coach. He sometimes forgets that he has running backs, or a running game, or is in just denial. And it doesn't matter, man. It don't matter who is playing. It don't matter who is his tackles, who's his guard. He gonna drop back and throw it, man. Backups, whatever. He gonna drop back and certainly gonna drop back and put 5 people in a pass pattern. It don't matter. This is clearly his blind spot. But I think even now, it's like, yo, we got it. Like, it's not just sort of, he got to protect Patrick Mahomes. He's got to protect Joe Tooney. He's got to protect Jawan Taylor. He's got to protect all those dudes up front. Joe Tooney's out there. Joe gave everything he had. He's over there with Myles Garrett. He ain't supposed to be. That ain't what he's supposed to be dealing with. And this week, he's not supposed to be dealing with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but he's got to help and protect him. And so, like, it would be as insane as it was in Cleveland. It would be even more insane if Bruh just said, you know what? Let's go, Pat. 15 times in a row, baby. Let's keep running. Like, he don't have sorry running backs. He's got good backs. And I just gotta believe that Mahomes, all of them in there. All right, hey, let's pull back. Let's not get into it unless the game absolutely dictates it. And there hasn't been a game yet that dictates just throw it all the time, because the Chiefs don't play games where they're behind by much. There has not been any of that. So it's I believe this will force him to adjust. I think.
I really hadn't considered it that way for poor old Joe Tooney. Like, it's a product of, like, your coworkers sucking, and so you get put in a worse position because you got to pick up the slack, and now he's playing out of position against the best pass rushers in the NFL.
Yeah,
because Wanye Morris was just so bad, because Kingsley was so bad that the Chiefs didn't have an option, and now DJ Humphries is hurt, and they just don't have anybody else to go to. You're so right. I feel bad for Joe too.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you got Caliendo, who's coming in, and he doesn't have experience in playing, and it's just like, hey, man, we're gonna run this sucker just like we would anyway. You know, hey, we're gonna run this thing as if Orlando Pace is over there. Who gives a rip? Like, let's just keep doing it, baby. 1-on-1, like, even on the touchdown pass, Serda, the touchdown pass to Noah Gray against Cleveland, in which Myles Garrett went down with what was that, by the way? I didn't see how Joe's hand could have got in. I don't even know what happened.
I think he just accidentally swiped his eye, like just the tip of the glove, like accidentally grazed his eyeball or something.
Doesn't he have a visor?
No, they put the visor on after that. So he wasn't wearing a visor before that.
I watched that replay multiple times, and it didn't look like Joe's hand got anywhere close. But Andy on that play was going Joe Tooney 1-on-1 with Myles Garrett in the red zone, 2nd and goal. Like, it's just like, you got, like, it's not just protecting Pat. You have to protect Joe Tooney. Joe Tooney is a left guard. He's an all-pro left guard. He's a left guard. How much does Joe Tooney weigh? Because he looks small as hell out there. I mean, he's built nicely, but Joe looks small as hell out there.
He's got to be 300 pounds, 304.
Is he? It don't look like he's that anymore.
He is he does look like a nimble 304.
He's a light. I bet you he's 287. And, like, I mean, you got to protect him. Like, that's like, it was weird. Those are blind spots for Andy. And it is, I'm going to get my passing game off and get these routes out here that I want. I mean, we watched Trey Hendrickson absolutely destroy Kingsley and send him to the bench. How many times did he go over there and give him help? It just kept rolling like it wasn't nothing. It's wild. All right, hey, let me throw this question out to you, and I we got great listeners, and I'm sure they'll have this conversation as well. But Serda, for years and years with the Chiefs, you knew like, hey, coming into the game, not gonna let Tyreek Hill beat us. All right, that's the one guy we look into the game, and if I'm a defense, he's so explosive. If Tyreek Hill gets going, we're in trouble. I'm gonna try to minimize and slow him down. Then after he left, it clearly became Kelsey. That's who Pat likes to go to. That's the guy that I want to stop. That's the guy that I want to slow down. That's the guy that I'm looking at and I'm saying, come hell or high water. Byron Pringle, you're going to beat me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you're going to beat me. Juju Smith, you're going to beat me. Justin Watson, you're going to beat me. But I'll be damned if I let 87 get in positions to beat me. Who's that guy for the Chiefs now? Who is it that the Chiefs look at? Like, as they walk into this game, who is it that DeMeco Ryans and the Texans are looking at and saying, all right, this is our focal point. We'll allow others to potentially beat us, and if they do, we'll tip our cap off and say, hey, man, you just beat us in our game plan. Who is it that you think teams are trying to go in first and foremost to slow down and stop for the Chiefs now? Because I obviously it's been Travis Kelce, but there's maybe an argument that people think that's not who it is anymore.
I think it's still Kelce, even though he's clearly not the same player that he has been in the past. But I think he still dictates so much respect on a weekly basis from the opposing teams, because we've just seen it in small flashes here where it's like when Mahomes really wants to lean on him, when he really, needs a big first down or whatever, like that's where he's going. And teams still know that. And I think Kelce still commands that respect, even though he's an older player who's clearly slowed down. But I think defenses still look at him like he is like the first ballot Hall of Famer, and he still commands the level of respect to get, that type of like double coverage and things like that and looks from the defense.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think, potentially that name and just know that Mahomes looks for him. But I wonder, like, for me, I wonder if it's not Pacheco and Hunt, the running game now. If you give the Chiefs, if you can stop the Chiefs run game, like clearly, and now Hollywood Brown comes back, right? And that could change things. But right now it seems like they struggle to get, big plays, right? And the Chiefs, the reason, like the big difference between the Chiefs and the Texans offense, right? Both of these teams, they have struggled with offensive line play. But the big difference is the Chiefs are like number one in the league on third down conversions, and the Texans are terrible at it. And like that's the big difference is, and then the other part is the Chiefs, I'm going stats, and I'm doing this for you, Big K. And the other part about that is the Chiefs also have the shortest distance on third downs than anybody else in the league. The Chiefs are inside of 3rd and 5s all the time, 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 1s, which obviously make it easier to convert. And I think a lot of that starts with the run game and what Pacheco and what Hunt have brought. So I think it's almost shifted right now to the running backs, to Pacheco and Hunt, is, hey, let's stop the run game. Because if we stop the run game and the Chiefs got to pass, that means Joe Tooney, that means Caliendo, that means Jawan Taylor has, and Trey Smith, who hasn't been great in pass protection this year. That means those guys got to pass protect. So I almost think right now it's swung to the running backs.
See, I could agree with that more if
Andy,
the Chiefs were even trying to run the ball.
Now that's the other part, is they take themselves out of that.
Yeah. It's because it's like, yeah, I mean, the running game at no point this entire season has it been like highly productive or explosive, but it was successful and they didn't lose yards. You weren't negative when you ran the football. It was always 3 to 4 yards. Occasionally you rip off a 9 to 12 yard run or something like that. But they were positive gains, which is why early in the season everybody
multiple 100-yard games.
Yeah, but that's why
rolling.
That's why early in the season, everybody's talking about how effective the Chiefs' rushing attack was, even though it wasn't the most explosive thing in the NFL. But then over the last 5-6 weeks, Andy has just gone so far out of his way to not run the football that it's like, are teams actually slowing down the rushing attack, or are they just refusing to run it in a way that they never get an opportunity to even get the running game going? Because it was working in the first half last week against the Browns. It looks pretty good. That was the best the rushing attack had looked in weeks. And then in the second half, Andy absolutely refused to run the football. So I think I still think that it's Kelce. Like, I still think he commands that attention. And I don't know why the Chiefs refuse to run the football, because it seems like that's where they would win the most if they would actually commit to it sometimes.
No, I do. I think the Chiefs take themselves out of the run game more than teams do. And that's why, to me, is when they run the football, it helps them get into third and manageables, and it slows things down at least some for the pass rush. And that to me is it. All right, we do this every week. When the Chiefs have the ball, let's jump at it here. And I think, listen, when the Chiefs have the ball, there's a lot of things offensively for the Chiefs in this game. I think the top thing is, as we know, Hollywood Brown's been activated, and there are reports that he's going to play. That he's going to play for the first time this year after did he get hurt on the first play of preseason against Jacksonville? It was the first drive, I know. Maybe it wasn't the first.
I think it was 2 plays into the game.
2 plays into the game.
I think it was the second play of the game.
Their prize free agent, their prize off-season addition, and he hasn't seen the field yet. And this is an explosive player, and if you listen to the Daily Fix, you should every day. We talked about the really big importance of him is how fast and how quickly he can uncover, which is something the Chiefs just have struggled with. Like, he can uncover on a slant, on an out, quicker maybe than anybody else on the team when you think about how much of a veteran he is and how much he knows what he's doing out there, as opposed to Worthy, who is still learning. By the way, Worthy is starting to pick things up a little bit. But it is interesting to see what that dynamic will look like. And sort of the excitement level of seeing him and Worthy on the field together. I don't know what Andy and Nagy had planned this season, because obviously the plan was, hey, Worthy and Brown and Rice and Kelce, and what will we do with this? That was clearly the plan. And I don't know if we'll get to see what that is unveiled to us on Saturday, but I am intrigued to see how that speed plays and how defenses play different. And if the Chiefs look different, where does this mean DeAndre Hopkins lines up? Where does this mean Juju? Like, I am really intrigued to see the impact of Hollywood Brown, and to see, like, you got 2 guys on the field that you gotta know they can hit their head on the goalpost at any point when they touch it, and they can hit it by just running to it and running past you. That I cannot wait to see the impact, because I think Hollywood Brown and what he brings to the table can impact everybody else around him. Worthy, Juju, Hopkins, and especially Kelce. That to me is the big thing. So we haven't seen it yet.
It's definitely exciting times, because it's like, this was supposed to be such a different season for the Chiefs.
They're back
offensively, and it's like, yeah, if Hollywood, and I specifically remember before that preseason game, you ranting and raving about there's just no reason to play starters in this game. And you do that every year, and you stick to it, and you're committed to it. And then Hollywood Brown gets injured, and initially they think he's going to be back way earlier in the season, but something goes wrong in the recovery process, and then it's like, oh, he might be done for the year. Now they catch a break and he's back a little bit sooner. Like it's all shaping up for him to hopefully be a difference maker for the Chiefs and what they hoped they were getting when they signed him to a 1-year contract. And then you have the Rashee Rice injury, and it just compounds and compounds and compounds as the season goes on. But it was just supposed to be so much different, and he was supposed to be a big difference maker for them. And in the offseason, I talked a lot about how, like, I think Hollywood Brown is a lot better than what his box scores looked like in Arizona. And I still think that he is a really, really good player who has never been fully utilized anywhere that he has been. And he can absolutely be a difference maker. I don't expect him to play a ton in this game. Like I expect the Chiefs are going to ease him. I'd be shocked if he plays more than like 15 snaps on Saturday, like in his first game back. Like I think he's gonna be on a very limited snap count, and they're just gonna put him out there and see if they can get him maybe one easy catch, a couple looks, and just get him back into the mix a little bit. And then they're gonna roll with what they've had recently. But what he can do to open things up for the offense, and then you still have Worthy who can win deep downfield, and Hollywood can win underneath and over the middle and outside, and then Hopkins who you can win on the quick, short, intermediate stuff where he can power through defenders and do all that, and then Kelsey's going to win how he wins. Like it could be a huge difference maker for the offense and for the passing game, especially if Andy's going to keep refusing to run the football moving forward.
I'm. Yeah, like I said, man, would it be a fair way to describe he's Xavier Worthy, except he knows what he's doing?
Yeah, I think he's a much more all-around wide receiver at this point.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. The little stuff with, body control.
Yeah, playing the ball and knowing where the sideline is, things like small little details like that Worthy is still really working through.
Small ways to know how to use his speed to get himself open. Like he's a Worthy that knows what he's doing. And look, we've seen Worthy open a lot this year, not knowing exactly what he's doing. And, I just think the element of having those two back there has to change the way you play your safeties, has to change. Because right now, if there's going to be a down the field threat, it's pretty clear who that's coming from. Like it's pretty clear who that down the field threat is coming from. And maybe they might try to sneak Justin Watson down the field, but I mean, come on. Like this one is a real, these are two real things that these guys are screaming. And I'm talking jet sweeps, reverses from any side, down the field, go routes from either side. So, yeah, I think his impact to see what that looks like. As you said, it may be on a limited basis. I think he'll play a little bit more than what you're talking. But we'll see. That is, I think, the number one thing. The other part about this, sort of, we talked about this a little bit earlier. But, man, this to me, with the Mahomes situation with the ankle, like I'm not saying that the Chiefs won't win the game if this doesn't happen, but it is the clear path of offensive success. And that is, hey, man, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, this running game, they have to be major factors in this game to me, Serda. Offensively, you have got to help this thing out and slow this pass rush, because this pass rush, if the Texans get the Chiefs in situations where it is obvious passing downs, and you know that you just at least have to expect that Patrick Mahomes is at least somewhat limited the way that he can scamper and scramble away from things. The run game is what can help slow the pass rush down. Run game and screens, which I hope we see. And I think a lot of that has to do with Kareem Hunt and Pacheco. And they've got to be major, major factors. One way to slow down that pass rush and to slow down Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, who love to line up really, really wide as 9 techniques and come off the edge, is running the football. They have to. Like I said, I won't put anything past the Chiefs that's the only way they can win. But it is clear to me the path to offensive success is running the football. And sort of this may be aggressive. I don't mean Patrick Mahomes scrambles. I think there should be 25 to 30 carries, like design run plays from Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know if Carson Steele is in the mix. P. Ryan may get a couple, but there should be 30 rushes to me by those guys.
And P. Ryan's been a lot better lately when he's gotten the opportunities in the passing game. He was really important last week, actually.
The big screen.
But no, I totally agree. Like, it's everything that Chiefs fans have been arguing about and wanting for weeks now. And for me, it's also part of the fact that, like, I feel like this ramp up process for Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know if it's not going the way that the Chiefs wanted it to, or it's just not going the way that I expected it to, or if this is just the way they would prefer to divvy this thing up right now. Because I really thought that Pacheco, who coming into the season was clear lead back for the Chiefs. I know they brought in P. Ryan, but it's still at the start of the season. It seemed like Pacheco was primed to take 75 to 80% of the Chiefs' backfield touches this season.
Kareem wasn't even on the team.
Yeah, and then Kareem Hunt comes in after the Pacheco injury, and it's been much closer to a 50-50 split than I think I expected, and I would like to see more Pacheco because, like, you know what Kareem's going to give you. Kareem's never going to be a net negative for the Chiefs coming out of the backfield, and he's a decent pass blocker. He can still catch some passes. He can break a tackle, and he's going to get some tough yards for you. Like, Kareem Hunt is fine, and I like seeing Kareem Hunt out there and what he's given the Chiefs this season. But they need explosive plays, and Isaiah Pacheco is the only guy in the backfield that can do that for you. It's not going to be Samaje Perine or Kareem Hunt or Carson Steele. Isaiah Pacheco is the only one that has the juice to rip off a 50-yard run, and the way you let him do that is by giving him more opportunities, giving him some more volume instead of, giving him a handful of touches in the first half and then the second half, he's just not a part of the offense in any way. Like, just give him more opportunities to try to wear down the defense and rip off a long run late in the game. Like, that's really all I want to see, because we saw how important Isaiah Pacheco was to the Chiefs last season in the playoffs and how important their rushing attack was in the postseason when they needed it. And I feel like there's some of that going on right now where maybe they want to save some of that for the playoffs, but you need it this week. You need it this week with a banged up Patrick Mahomes. Like, you need your rushing attack to be a big part of this game plan, and you need it to be successful. And in my opinion, the easiest way to make sure that happens is by giving Isaiah Pacheco more touches.
And to your point, Steve, Isaiah Pacheco's been back 3 games. 2 of the 3 games, they've had the exact same number of carries. And low for me, like, they had 7 apiece against the Raiders. So 14 handoffs in that game against the Raiders.
One of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah, just set to hell with it, man. He threw it 15 straight times at one point in the second half. I'll never understand that one. Now, the one game where it was clear he was a lead back, I still don't think they ran enough, was the game against the Chargers where he had 14 carries. And this is the thing with Pacheco, and this is why I think you have to keep running the football, and why last week was so insane in the second half that they didn't, is these 2 guys in particular, Kareem and Isaiah Pacheco, they are guys that wear defenses down. 3rd and 4th quarter, you get about tired of hitting those 2 dudes who run it hard and who are laying the wood when they run it, right? When you are going to tackle Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, every single time they force you to bring your big boy pads. And damn it, that gets old in about 5 minutes left in the 3rd and the rest of the 4th quarter. And you started to see, if you remember the Charger game before Trey Smith lost his mind and started headbutting people, it felt like, all right, Pacheco and them started wearing on him. And then there was a drive in the 4th quarter where he's getting yards and getting yards and getting yards. And you're starting to see the juice that they need from him. they got to keep doing it, right? Like they ran the ball a hell of a lot more in that first quarter, in that first half. Because if you look at it, they had 26 carries between the two of them. Again, 13 apiece. But I mean, they only ran the ball like 9 times in the second half, 8 times in the second half. So they just, I mean, that just cannot be the case anymore. Cannot do that. All right. When the Texans have the ball, and I'll just throw this out, and this is me. I've watched every one of the Texans games, and I've seen them all. And I know that for some Chiefs fans, this sounds crazy because it feels like I know I've had this conversation over the years about Ryan Tannehill or said quarterback that has a really, really good running game. And you wouldn't have thought this would be the case with CJ Stroud, especially coming into the year. But Steve, to me, the Chiefs have to make this a CJ Stroud game and not a Joe Mixon game for the Texans. I know it sounds crazy, and Nico Collins is one of the better receivers in the league, but I think the Chiefs have a better chance of success defensively if this is a game that's dictated by CJ Stroud and not Joe Mixon. And let me say this. I don't say this to say that I think CJ Stroud is some kind of scrub or something. I don't think he is. I do think he has taken steps back from last year, and he has had some struggles. And I think there are some real understandable reasons why he's had those struggles. Same understandable reasons why Patrick Mahomes has not maybe been his complete dominant self. But we've seen it with the Texans. When they go up against teams that can stop the run and they lose the ability to have any kind of concern with the run, and you turn this thing over to, hey, CJ got to drop back and pass, and that means them jokers up front got to block. I have never seen a team in my life be as bad as they are against twist and stunts and picking up blitzes. Like a lot of the times, it's not just the physical things. And yes, they can get physically dominated at times. Shaq Mason, a struggle. And they've already made a big move where we don't know much, right? They have moved their top 5 paid right tackle to left guard because it's gotten so bad. They've moved him to left guard and brought in their rookie second-round pick, Blake Fisher, out of Notre Dame. He is playing right tackle. And we haven't really seen what he can do. And him against George Karlaftis, and I'm sure Chris Jones will get out there and have him a turn out there. We'll see what he is up to. But if you can do what you've done all year, and that is stop the run, and you can make this a CJ Stroud game, there have been turnovers. He got sacked 8 times against the Jets. He's been like four sacks. I swear to God, seems to be a minimum for him here of late. 4 sacks in this last game. 4 sacks against the Titans. It's like that's what they do. And if you can stop Joe Mixon and make this a drop back and pass it, especially when you know he has to pass it, and this is when Spags can get funky with his blitz packages, I think that is the best way of success for this defense, is to make sure this game is dictated by 3rd and longs that CJ Stroud has to negotiate.
Yeah, it's insane that this is where we're at with the Houston Texans. Like, I legitimately thought this team was like a bona fide Super Bowl contender coming into this season, and they're a playoff team, but they can
definitely win this game. But
yeah, like they don't look better than they did last season. Like they're not. That this season hasn't been as easy or nearly as fun for them offensively or for CJ Stroud, because their offensive line's totally fallen apart. Like CJ Stroud, who was one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen, like one of the most dynamic playmaking quarterbacks we've seen since like Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter. Like that's how amazing CJ was as a rookie. Like throwing the football downfield and creating and buying time and doing all of that. And this season has just been so far removed from that because the offensive line is a disaster. Like, you think the Chiefs' offensive line has been bad? Like, at least they got some all pros in the middle. Like, the Texans' offensive line is one of the absolute worst units in the NFL. And CJ Stroud under pressure, and when he gets blitzed, is like bottom 2 in the NFL in terms of just like virtually every quarterback metric against the blitz that you can look at. Like, he has been one of the worst in the league.
Been that bad?
Yes, but it's because he's constantly under pressure. Like, I don't blame CJ Stroud for that. It's because of how bad the offensive line is. Like, that's what a disaster it's been. And even, Nico Collins obviously missed a lot of time, but prior to that, Nico Collins was playing absolutely out of his mind, and he's still one of the absolute best wide receivers in the NFL. Gonna be a huge problem. Tank Dell hasn't been nearly as big of a factor this season, and then they lose Diggs, so the offense has had some problems and injuries and everything. But like, Nico is a special player. The difference between like even early in the season and what we've seen lately, though, is CJ doesn't even have time to try to throw the ball deep to Nico Collins because there's no time. There's no time for him to drop back. There's no time for him to try to look downfield because he is constantly under pressure, and it is totally decimated the Texans offense as a whole. And it's kind of sad to watch for a team that I had such high expectations for. So Spags should be dialing up every blitz known to mankind this week and getting after CJ Stroud.
Well, the other part now is it was so bad at one point. Like, there was about a 4-week period that they played about 3 games that, it just wasn't even survivable. Like, it was just not even, like, you couldn't even, how we watch Mahomes and he can kind of make some stuff work, and then some of it you just can't. Like, when he lost his mind with Wanye against the Raiders, and he can't.
Yeah.
Like, there was about a 3 out of a 4-game stretch where it was just that. It's actually gotten a bit better to where now we're looking at the effects of the pressure all year has now going to a place where he is which is understandable. He is feeling pressure that's not there, rushing stuff. It has messed with his accuracy, which was his calling card, and now he misses throws and misses reads, and it is now kind of stepped back to where it is him that have had issues, but all of it stems from the pressure that started early. But I know, as crazy as that sounds, like, as you said, man, Nico Collins, that's a guy that has missed. He's missed sort of Nico Collins, just to put into kind of context of the kind of year he's having or he could be having. Nico Collins missed what? 5 weeks, 6 weeks of games, and he still like leads their team in receiving and is still, somewhere in the top 25 in receiving yards. And he missed 6 weeks of games. Like, he had before last week, which, hey, he struggled. He 4 for 17, but he did catch 2 touchdowns. He was averaging over 100 yards a game, right? Like, he was a bit of a problem. Now, like, they've been struggling here of late to get him going and get him the ball. So to me, it is a deal of, if Joe Mixon gets going, and we've seen some games where he has, now they can use their play action. They can use their boot, and it can really mean something. I think it is clear for me that the Chiefs want to make this, as crazy as it sounds, a CJ Stroud game and not a Joe Mixon game. All right, so to give me my music here, the game that's sweeping the nation, a little certified or imposter. We make a statement. You say if that statement is certified or that bad boy is an imposter. Here's the first one, Serda. Joe Thuney is the best option moving forward the rest of the way at left tackle. Certified or imposter?
I'm going to say imposter. Because I still think it's DJ Humphries if they can just get him ready for the playoffs. Now, I think Tooney, is going to be your left tackle the rest of the regular season because these matchups, like you just can't put Wanye out there against Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson and then TJ Watt. And then we already saw what happened to this offensive line the first time they played the Broncos. Like you just simply, you got to handle business the next 2 games and lock up this 1 seed so you can rest some starters in week 18 against this Broncos team.
Oh, you think DJ doesn't come back until the playoffs?
Yeah, because I think the reason he got hurt is because it fell apart so fast with Wanye. The Chiefs rushed him onto the field because it was such a disaster, and he wasn't ready. Like he needed probably a few weeks, and he probably needed a month to get ready, and he got a couple of weeks, and they rushed him out there, and now he's injured. But I think if they can get him healthy and get him back on the field, he didn't look, it's not like he looked like he was an elite left tackle or something, but I still think him playing the position that he knows, and even if it's below average, it's still better than what you were getting out of Wanye or Kingsley at points this season. Like, I think he is still the best answer with Tooney moving back inside to guard, because I think that's still the best lineup that we can get from this Chiefs offensive line.
Before I answer, real quick, Serda, what did you, like, not even putting the stipulation of, hey, he's a left guard that's kicked out, which obviously you would kind of, grade on a curve. What did you think of his performance? Like, what did you think, especially, like, it was better. To me, it felt like by the eye test, it was better than what Wanye and what Kingsley have put out.
I thought he was solid in the first half. In the second half, they started to really struggle, like as the game wore on. But I don't think it wasn't all just Joe Tooney playing out of position. It was the offensive line as a whole started to struggle, and the Browns were just bringing way more pressure on Mahomes in the second half. In part because the Chiefs were throwing the ball and not running clock whatsoever. And so the Browns were just like, oh, they're really just going to keep throwing it? Well, what the hell? We're just going to blitz the hell out of them and try to get to the quarterback. And that's what they started doing in the second half. So I don't think Tooney was bad, like by any means. But
was that arguably the best left tackle they saw all season?
Yeah, I think you can make the case for that. And then Mike Caliendo was really good at guard. So I mean, maybe there is a case for it. I just feel like you'd rather have the perennial all-pro at the position that he's used to playing instead of playing him at left tackle and getting into the playoffs that way. But yeah, you might be right, but I'm still gonna say imposter.
Can I say my hope is imposter? I don't know if that's actually the right answer. My hope is imposter. He just looks so small out there and out of place. Out there. I don't know if it's the number or what, but he just looks so small out there. My hope is an imposter. I'm not sure if that is the case. I'm going to stick with it and say imposter, although it is hard for me not to look out there and say, yo, even if you include the 3 quarters that DJ played against the Chargers, if we say that to me was maybe the best left tackle we've saw all year, the thought would be 3 more games in the regular season, maybe 2 more games, whatever it is, he would get better, right? Just because he would get more accustomed to it. He'd get more used to it. He'd get more reps at it. But I'm going to say imposter because DJ Humphrey clearly has the frame. And the other part you don't want to forget is, yes, Caliendo was good, but Joe Tooney is great at left guard. Like he may be the first team All-Pro again this year at left guard. So I think that's why I'm going to say imposter, because obviously DJ has the size and the experience to be out there. So I think he is the best. But I am going to I do understand sort of that That was arguably the best left tackle we saw all season from the Chiefs. And you would think, all right, a game against the Texans, another game against the Steelers, he would only improve on that. And it wasn't just some patsy he went up with. I mean, it was Myles Garrett that he went up against. So
it just says a lot about what
yes,
an amazing offensive lineman Joe Tooney is,
and how bad our other guys were. Because I'm not going to say he wasn't like he wasn't great or anything. Like I'm not saying that, but it felt Orlando Brownish on a bad day. Like it felt a little bit like that. So I'm gonna say imposter, but I could easily be convinced the other way. All right, prediction time as we do at the end every time. The Chiefs Saturday, short day, short rest. Not to mention they're gonna have short rest again as they play on Christmas on Wednesday. But Saturday, by the way, Serda, I don't know if you know, and our listeners, I got a bet. I'm at a bar watching the game, and if the Chiefs lose, I gotta get dunked in a tank. If the Chiefs win, a gentleman that I'm shout out to Figgy Fig, who I am going against as we're putting this party together. He's got to get dunked, and hopefully he gets dunked. But the prediction time, I'll start first, Steve. I know it's weird because this team has seen it all, but the one thing that I do believe is, and we saw it, boy, we saw it big time when the Burrowhead stuff was said. We know that they remember those things. We've seen epic moments, sort of Mahomes doing that number, counting the touchdown passes he threw. We all heard them talking about Burrowhead afterwards. We've seen many people talk trash, from Earl Thomas to Jamar Chase in this run. This is what teams do. They all have done it. I think the blatant disrespect that they have received in this thing, they were built as underdogs when Mahomes looked like he was out at home at Arrowhead to a team that 2 games ago lost to Will Levis and the Titans. And mind you, in that game, Will Levis had a fumble and had a pick six and another near interception, and they fumbled a punt return that set them up, and the Texans ran the opening kickoff back to the 10-yard line. And they still lost that game at home to Will Levis and the Titans. I thought that was disrespectful. And right now, the game is 3.5. It was 3, which means basically the Chiefs only have their favorite because of home field advantage. And that's nuts. That team's 13-1. This team has not had the years you talked about if they thought. I think the Texans can absolutely win this game, and I won't be shocked if we're talking about this next week and they lost to the Texans. But still, I think it's really disrespectful for a 13-1 team, the best team in the league, to deal with this. And then Tim Settle's popping off the mouth, making promises towards Patrick Mahomes and the offensive line. I think the Chiefs respond to this. And I do think the Chiefs know they're on a big stage, and I think they sniff and smell and care about the home field advantage. And we'll see if the Texans are ready for this atmosphere. I got the Chiefs winning this thing 27-13. I think this is another comfortable game. I think they come out really inspired and come out really fast. 27-13, baby.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is, certainly a case to be made, like why the Texans could win this game, because I think defensively, like what they do is what can really give the Chiefs problems. They're great at rushing the passer. They've got a good run defense. Their secondary is not the greatest, but what their secondary does do well is force turnovers, and that's something that the Chiefs have struggled with, even though they've gotten a little bit better at it lately. But the Texans have won some games. You're muted. I don't know what you're trying to say to me right now, but
sorry, I will say Stingley is special in the back end.
Yes,
when he plays hard.
Yeah, and Derek Stingley is great. Like nobody's denying that, but he also, he has his moments where I feel like you can catch him sleeping. And but yeah, at the end of the day, but then you're talking about Steve Spagnuolo and the performance that they put together against the Browns last week. And like if I'm going to count on one thing, I'm going to count on Spags getting this defense ready to go for the playoffs. And it felt like last week against the Browns was the first step towards that. So I think the defense is going to have another nice opportunity to have a really impressive game here. I know it's going to be tough shutting down Nico, but you just got to get after Stroud. You just got to pressure him. The Chiefs are going to find a way to do that. I still don't think that the Chiefs are going to put up a ton of points. I hope they're going to try to lean into the run game here a little bit, but I'm still not comfortable picking them to score or to win by double digits. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs 17-14 in this one.
We got 17-14, 17-14, 27-13. Yeah, I think it's a comfortable win in this game. And it will. I think we're going to see good Andy Reid, right? I think that's the other part too. I think we're going to see a focused, good Andy Reid who is trying to do everything he can to win that game because I think they can smell home field advantage. All right, BK will be back with us next week. It'll be fun as hopefully the Chiefs are getting ready on Christmas Day to solidify the 1 seed and not make that Denver game important. We are out.